I hereby call to order the regular meeting of the Goodyear Planning and Zoning Commission to be held on Wednesday, January 24th in 2009. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let the record show that all 7 commissioners are present, and the next item of business is the selection of a chairman and a vice chair that will take effect at our next regular scheduled meeting, February of 2009. Can I have a nomination for chairperson, please?
I nominate. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I nominate our current chairperson to renew his term.
All right, I have a nomination. I have a second.
Second.
Any other any other people would like to run for the job? All right. Seeing no other nominations, I declare the nominations closed. All those in favor of myself, Gary Gelzer, remaining as chairman, please say aye.
Aye.
All those
I move
opposed,
we re-elect Chairman Gelzer by acclamation.
so be it. All right. And it is my sad duty to ask for a nomination for vice chair. Our current vice chair will be leaving us. Carol DeBroker will be leaving us, and comments will be made at the end of the meeting. But he has served for a very long period of time, and while I was out on the high seas, he did an admirable job this past fall. So without further ado, I'd like to open the nominations for vice chair for the commission, please.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we put a name, Commissioner Lax, for vice chair.
I'll second.
All right. Is there any other nominations? Okay, now I'll entertain a motion for acclamation on Commissioner Lax.
Mr. Chairman, I move we elect Mr. Lax Vice Chairman by acclamation.
All right.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Congratulations, Sean. Next month. And by the way, I'm going to be gone on railroad business in March, so be prepared.
Wait, is it too late to change my mind?
I'll be here next month to guide you through it. Okay. Public comments. If anybody would like to speak on a non-agenda item, we have public comment cards here. And I have one from Mr. McDougall. Do you want to speak on a non-agenda item or an item on the agenda?
We're presenting tonight.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Then I will not worry about that.
No, we did.
Is there anybody for public comments? If not, we'll move on to the next order of business.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
we did not approve the minutes.
thank you. Sorry, can I have a motion to approve the minutes for the regular December meeting of December 17th of 2008?
So moved.
I have a motion from Commissioner Loretano.
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Lax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The ayes have it, 7-0. Just to keep the record straight, public comments now. Anybody? Seeing none, we'll take that. Disclosure of ex parte communications. Anybody have any comments? Dustin Jones, who is on tonight's agenda with the Madera project, and the chairman had a short conversation over the phone just before this session. Okay, the consent agenda. The consent agenda has 2 items. They are case 077000008, the Madera Minor General Plan Amendment. and we have case 07-200-00016, the Madera rezone. The chair is pulling these from the consent agenda, and we'll hear a short presentation from the applicant, Mr. Jones, and anybody from staff, if staff would like to make a presentation. Steve, do you want to say anything? Okay. Then this is not a public hearing. This is just a consultation with the commission.
Mr. Chairman?
Jones?
I have to declare a conflict of interest, as I did last month.
All right. Thank you very much. Please note that Commissioner Schlosser has left the dais. Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, congratulations on your reelection and congratulations being elected as Vice Chairman as well. Members of the Commission, stand before you this evening accepting the fact that staff would like to continue our case to next month's meeting. The reason I'm standing before you this evening is we received a letter in the interim after our last hearing before you where we had a pretty substantial discussion, presentation about our case, about the project and where we're at with the project. And there were some questions that we had prepared to come before you and resolve that had to deal with some of the circulation and some of the other infrastructure issues that were outlined in my presentation last time. In the interim, we received a letter from staff informing us of a meeting that's going to be scheduled, that has been scheduled, that will take place on the 30th of this month, or 31st? The 30th of this month on Friday, a week from Friday. And I believe it was probably sent out to all of the developers of property in the Rainbow Valley area. My understanding from the content of the letter is that we will be meeting to discuss some of the regional issues that are impacting the development of probably maybe a dozen or so, maybe 9 or so different developments. Half dozen developments that are moving forward in the city in various stages in the Rainbow Valley area. The reason I wanted to bring this to your attention is that this project that I've been involved in, representing Ariad, has been in the hopper for a very long time. We had our general plan amendment approved for this 2 years ago, this month exactly, in January of 07. We submitted the application in March of 06, went through the entire review process of the major general plan amendment to bring to light to all of the regional issues that would be impacted by bringing this project into the city. We subsequently had, just a year ago, our annexation approved, about 2,400 acres brought into the city. Again, the general plan amendment that was processed at the time. There were a lot of regional issues that came out of that general planning process. As you may recall, there were some other projects that were moving forward at the same time. The meeting was initially scheduled to be at the end of 06, according to state statute, and we had to continue the public hearings into January of 07 because you had the large Sonoran Valley general plan amendment was moving forward, ours, as well as I think a couple others that were in the Rainbow Valley area. During that process, there was a lot of discussion about regionalism and regional issues. The city was in the process of adopting a circulation plan for the area, as we noted in our last presentation last month. The Hunt Road alignment, some of the other road alignments, the bridges, the washes, a lot of those infrastructure, major pieces of infrastructure in Rainbow Valley came out and were fleshed out as we went through our general planning process before this commission 2 years ago. As we did that, and as we got our general plan approved, we 6 months after that approval submitted our PAD zoning application in the summer of 07. And went through, for the past 18 months, multiple reviews. We actually have had 5 reviews of our PAD to address different issues dealing with the phasing, the circulation, the water, the sewer, police, and fire to be provided for this development. There isn't a desire by anybody to have a development come before this Planning Commission or the City Council that doesn't have the necessary infrastructure and needs met by the potential and future residents of the development. We have gone through this process for the past 18 months and feel like we are pretty close to having these issues resolved, and felt we were very prepared to come before the Planning Commission to address the issues. We have a development agreement that's in about fourth or fifth draft that's gone back and forth between the city and myself, and we're down to maybe a half dozen bullet point issues on financing and funding that need to get resolved. We're waiting for the city attorney to get the comments back to us right now. And again, in the interim, we received a letter. We're going to have this meeting. The concern I want to express this evening is while regionalism is important, we need to be careful, and I've expressed this to others at the city, of lumping all development into the exact same bag. There have been developments that have been hastily approved by the city that have gone through this process on a very different time track and time frame than this development. This development has taken the normal course. A PAD has taken about 18 months. The annexation took about a year to be processed. The general plan amendment took its necessary time. We feel like the city has taken all the time to do all that needs to approve the development, and we're so close. We're right there, and we want to be able to come before you, but there's a sense, and this has been expressed by many of the developers in the Rainbow Valley area who've received the same letter, that the city wants to have a meeting to talk about, is that we're all kind of getting lumped together because there have been some developments recently approved by the city that have left the city holding the bag on a lot of infrastructure costs and needs. And that was one developer, one big developer, and everyone's being essentially lumped together. This development is self-contained. We have our own financing. We have our own time frame. We have our own investors. We've been going through the process on our own in absence of any other development. The sewer, water, police, fire, all of the commitments, we're not relying on any development around us in order for those things to happen. We've made those commitments to the city that we can deliver on. And I think the potential, because of the negative taste in the mouth of staff and council and some in the community, because of the large development that went through a different process of approvals and went through and maybe should have had a little more time to be reviewed, and because those costs the city has to absorb now, these have been talked about in the paper, it's no big secret. The perceptions development community may be punished as a result of this, and we don't want to have that be the negative effect. We are individuals. Each developer is an individual. Each property owner is an individual. Each PAD needs to be able to be looked at individually. Understanding that there is regional approaches. That's why we have Growing Smarter. That's why we have general plans. That's why we went through the process and did a general plan amendment to see how we integrate it into the city and be a part of the vision. So there is a city council meeting. I believe it's a work session scheduled for Monday night. I spoke with Harvey about this today. He'll be presenting to the city council to get some more direction as to how to deal with Rainbow Valley. And I'm assuming in an effort to avoid the mistakes that may have been made with some other hasty developments that the city took into its jurisdiction. We don't want to be a problem. That's not our desire. But we do want to be a regional player in the city of Goodyear. As I said when we went and did our general plan amendment 2 years ago, when we submitted our application for the general plan amendment, we were at the end of the city. I mean, at the very, very end at Patterson Road, at the very, very southern tip of the city. By the time our general plan was approved, we were an infill site because there was 10,000 or so acres being annexed in and general planned way south of us. So this infill development called Rainbow Valley is now before the city council. There will be a development meeting coming up, as I said, next week, and there will be some discussion as to how to deal with infrastructure so as to avoid some of the issues that came up. And again, we're not contesting that. We're not adversarial about it. We just want to be able to be a regional player, but also be dealt with individually on the merits of our case that we feel is very warranted. The development agreement, the PAD, all of the things that we've been going through. I can't think of anything that's in our PAD that we would have been presenting tonight and hope to be presenting next week that we would have had any objections from staff on. I don't think there are any deal points that are planning related that would be a contention for the Planning Commission. There are some bullet points, financing, timing, details that need to be worked out in the development agreement. And those are issues we're working out with the city attorney, and we'll be working out. Ultimately, the city council will approve it. It won't come before you. But staff has been very concerned to make sure we have everything taken care of. And we respect that. But again, we want to make sure that we don't all get lumped together, all half dozen developers that are in Rainbow Valley that have been going through this process, which takes time, be penalized because there were some other hasty developments approved that may have needed some more time to be reviewed in the process. So with that, appreciate the time this evening, appreciate the chairman taking up off the consent agenda so I could speak, and hopefully we can be back here after having had the city council meeting next Monday, the meeting with the developers the following Friday, and hopefully get our comments back on our agreements and get the PAD before you and get a unanimous vote of approval and move on to the city council. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Don't leave. Even though this is not a public hearing, are there any comments or questions that any of the commissioners would like to make?
No.
Yes.
Commissioner Williams.
Dustin, thank you very much for your presentation, and I appreciate your concerns. And it's been my experience that we have treated each applicant and each proposal individually, although we have looked at how it may affect a neighboring development. And I understand where you're coming from and what you're asking for. But I guess the one additional thing today that makes it in the city's interest to proceed very cautiously that you did not mention is the general state of the economy. Thank you.
Any other comments? Would anybody from the public like to make any additional comments? Seeing none, any further comments, Mr. Jones?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Williams, the state of the economy is the exact reason why we feel very strongly we need to move forward. There have been millions of dollars put into this development to date. And ultimately, when you have investors that put in millions of dollars, they want to see when's it zoned, when's it entitled, where are the agreements. At this point, we've gone through this process over 3.5 years, and we're looking at what do we have to show for it. Well, we've got some general plans that are approved. We don't have zoning. We don't have the commitments from the city. We have an annexation into the city, which means we can't develop unless we do it in the city of Goodyear. And the desire now is the city of Goodyear needs to respond, and now that we're in your jurisdiction, work with us. Let's work out the details of an agreement so we can develop. But we can't have millions of dollars invested in this economy and have it just go up in smoke because there's a de facto moratorium on any approvals, any developments that may occur in Rainbow Valley. We have stated from the very beginning, we're self-contained, we've got the commitments, we can move forward. We don't want to put the city in a bad situation. Bad situation for the city is a bad situation for us. That's not our desire. But the hangover that the city staff is feeling because of the last development that was going through shouldn't impact us. We really want to be a different development entirely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Since we pull these both from the agenda, I will ask for motions individually on each case to continue the case to the February 18th meeting. So may I have a motion on the Madera minor general plan amendment to continue that, please?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend that the commission continue case number 07700000008, the Madera minor general plan amendment, until our regular meeting on February 18th.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Williams, and I have a second
Second.
from Vice Chair DeBroker. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it 6-0. Okay.
See you
I'd
next
like-
month. Thank you.
What?
See
Now,
you next month.
just stay up here for one more case. I have a case,
Oh, that's right.
the Madera rezone. I would like a motion to continue that also to the February 18th meeting. That's case 07200000016.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we continue to the February 18th, 2009 meeting, case number 07200000016, the Madera rezone.
I have a motion from Commissioner Loretano and a second
Second.
from Commissioner Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it 6-0. Thank you very much, Mr. Jones. Okay, now I would like to open the public hearing on case 08200000001, the Citrus Center rezone. We'll have a public hearing on this case, and Katie Wilkin will be presenting for the city.
Thank you, Chairman Gelzer, members of the Commission. Staff has received a request to rezone 18.8 acres from the agricultural planned area development and general commercial with PAD overlay zoning districts to the general commercial C2 zoning district. This will facilitate a future commercial development known as Citrus Center. The site is located at the northeast corner of Van Buren Street and Citrus Road. The site is currently part of the Cotton Lane RV and Golf Park PAD, which is located east of the property. Approximately 9.5 acres were zoned C2 with PAD overlay, which is this western portion of the site. And approximately 8.9 acres were meant to facilitate an additional 148 RV spaces. And if we look at the original PAD document, right here you can see where those RV spaces would have been located. There's also...
Katie,
yes.
question. When was the original case? I had a hard time reading that document looking for a date. And so could you just give us a date on that?
May 28th, 1996.
Okay, thank you.
There's also a small strip of land that splits the property, which is zoned AG, agricultural. This property is owned by the Roosevelt Irrigation District, and they have provided the city with consent for this rezone. The request would zone the entire 18.8 acres as C2 with no PAD overlay. The proposed center would facilitate approximately 180,000 square feet of retail space. The applicant will be required to submit a master site plan with the site plan submittal for the first building that will be located on the site. This master site plan will include architectural design guidelines, which will ensure a planned and unified development. The request is consistent with the general plan designation of community commercial. Staff recommends approval of the request, and that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and representatives of the applicant are also available. Thank you.
Questions of Commissioner Loretano?
Yes, do we have any plans or anything further about any timelines, what build-out would be on this? I think it's back to what we were talking about earlier, the economy right now with a lot of retail going under rather than us building more. Is there any plans, or is this further off in the future?
You know, I think that's a question that would probably best be answered by the applicant. So
Then
they
I
can-
will hold that for the
Okay,
applicant.
thank you.
Any other, Commissioner Lax?
Katie, your staff report mentions that the wastewater treatment facility that's on the
Yes.
property will be abandoned.
Yes.
Is there another one close in the area that will serve the community, the surrounding area? Is this one in use now, and we have the facilities available, or will we have to find another site?
Basically, this site serves the Cotton Lane RV and Golf Park. They're not on city services. So this services them, and plans have already been submitted to the city. I'm not sure where they are, but they're going to be going on to city water and wastewater services. So it's not so much the rezone that's going to affect that, it's that the Cotton Lane RV Park is coming on to city services.
So it's no longer required?
No, it's not required anymore.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff? I have a quick question, Katie. On the overhead that you have up right now, is the green line that bisects the, is that the Roosevelt irrigation parcel is that an easement to go there, or am I missing something?
That is a parcel owned by RID. There's no irrigation services on it. We believe it was just a way for the irrigation district to get access to Van Buren Street so they could service their irrigation. And when the site plan comes in, there won't be any buildings built on that easement or that parcel, but it will be Zone C2 as part of this request.
Okay, so the RID is going to retain ownership of that strip of land so that they can get at their canal, but the whole parcel will be zoned. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the reason for the zoning of this parcel is because an 18-acre site is much more logical for neighborhood commercial than a 12-acre site? Or should I leave that to the applicant?
That's probably better answered by the applicant, but this will be one commercial development rather than, having this as a commercial development and possibly having two commercial developments or.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it is staff's opinion also that an 18-acre site actually is more conducive to providing a good planned area, a planned shopping center than a 12 or 10-acre site.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Since there are no more questions of staff, I'm going to invite Mr. McDougall, who is the applicant, to come up and make a presentation or answer questions, whichever he prefers.
I'll do a little bit of both. I'm Kevin McDougall of McDougall DevCon, representing the applicant, Citrus Center LLC. Katie did a fine job. She has covered most of the issues, I believe. With respect to timeline, I would say that I would anticipate I haven't gotten a firm commitment when they want to go to construction, but I would anticipate within, I would guess around 18 months, 2 years, something like that. There's one other issue that committee should be aware of, is that I did want to mention that the right-of-way on Van Buren Street is 33 feet and 55 feet of Maricopa County, and the city has strips of right-of-way to the north of that. So as a part of this, I'm not sure if the city would want to annex or take over the right-of-way, because I'm sure that as a part of this, we're planning on building the adjacent infrastructure and turn lanes and everything associated with that. We've also worked with the development to the south, which is Rose Gardens, and talked to them about what they're planning so that we can match their development also.
Questions of the applicant? Commissioner Williams? No,
thank you.
You just had, okay. Any questions of the applicant? Okay, I had, could you talk about the Roosevelt irrigate, the RID easement or that strip of land, and how you plan on developing this property, knowing that that strip has to either remain vacant or?
Yes, we've written a letter and agreement with Roosevelt Irrigation District, giving them authority to approve our plans. Roosevelt Irrigation District has 3 laterals in the area. There's the one in the middle is a fee hold piece, which they hold fee title to. So, and their engineers have expressed some wishes that they might want to sell it, but that's still nothing in writing.
Okay, so it is not being used at this point?
It is being used.
Oh, it is.
It is
being
currently
used.
servicing the agricultural piece directly on the south side
Got
of
it, okay.
Van Buren, but it's probably only going to stay in service until such time as the Rose Gardens subdivision is constructed.
Okay. I have a question of senior staff. Mr. McDougall asked, sorry, senior staff. Mr. McDougall talked about Maricopa County. The Van Buren would be developed to city standards, and any non-annexed property would be annexed into the city and then go to a 55-foot wide strip. Is that correct? Do I have that correct or close?
Mr. Chairman, you're correct. It is all actually in the city today, I believe. There is a old rights-of-way, 33 feet to the county, and then some of the city. But regardless, stipulation number 8 in the rezoning requires the developer to dedicate necessary additional rights-of-way up to 65 feet for the half-street major arterial that is Van Buren.
Okay. Let me go back to you. In the write-up there talked about you were responsible for 1/4 of the fees for the Citrus Road Bridge across the RID Canal. When would you anticipate that Citrus Road would be widened, or is that money going to be put in escrow to satisfy, so the city would be able to, when we have to widen that street, we will have your contribution?
I would anticipate that the portion of the bridge would be constructed when the piece to the north, which the applicant also owns, was developed. I would anticipate that up to the bridge with a taper lane adjacent to this project would service meet the requirements, as long as it's approved by city and traffic, of course, would meet the requirements for the traffic needs associated with this project. But as far as escrow, I'm not sure if the client would be opposed to that or not, but we could research that.
Okay. Lastly, you brought this up, so I'll ask it. What are the plans, since the client owns the property to the north of the RID Canal? That is not, the track is across the street on the west side of
North
Citrus.
side. The Trotter track?
The Trotter track, the old Trotter track. What are the plans for this area?
The property to the north?
Yes.
There's no plans at this time, but I would envision commercial.
Okay.
But it's not in front of the council at this time.
Right, right, I understand that. And then last but not least, the wastewater treatment well that's there, when would you envision that being taken out of service?
In about within the next, I will say 3 months. There's a sewer line currently under construction, and the water improvements that are going to provide service to the Cotton Lane RV Park.
Okay, so sometime before this summer, that will be taken out of, as soon as the RV park is hooked up, that'll be taken out of commission and taken off the property.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
No, actually, one for you, Mr. Gelzer. I'm a little disappointed that you didn't make some comments encouraging development of the Goodyear waterfront on this case.
Well, when they come back to us with a site plan, we're going to have picnic benches and parks and a ramada along the RAD Canal. You know my standard policy. Be prepared. Thank you very much for bringing that up for the Goodyear waterfront. Okay. Would anybody from the public like to make a comment on this case? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And any commission questions or comments? All right. In that case, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve this request for, let me read my, a rezone for the Citrus Center rezone, please.
So moved, Mr. Chair. I recommend approval of case 0820000001, Citrus Center rezone with the 14 stipulations.
All right. I have a motion from Vice Chair DeBroker.
I'll second.
I have a second from Commissioner Williams. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it 7-0. All right, our next order of business, and a lengthy piece of paper that was read by all commissioners, is the presentation of the 2008 General Plan Progress Report. And Katie Wilkins will be making that presentation. That was a lot of work, a lot of reading, Katie. Well done,
Yeah.
but a lot of reading.
Thank
Take
you.
it away.
Thank you, Chairman Gelzer, members of the commission, and thank you for looking through all the materials. I do have one presentation for item B and item C together, so I'll just go through that presentation. As you said, this is the General Plan Progress Report for the year 2008. This is the second report of this nature that we are bringing to the Commission. Just to recap, the current general plan was ratified on November 4th, 2003 by voters. It was overseen by General Plan Advisory Committee made up of 21 members, and those who were a part of it, I'm sure, remember that process well.
Every agonizing meeting.
And the plan did win the Arizona Planning Association Award for Best Comprehensive Plan that year. And these were the dedicated GPAC members of that General Plan Committee. So these are the population units and city size when the plan was approved in November of 2003, and this is the estimated city population of 61,114 as of December 1st of 2008, with an estimated dwelling unit count of 21,961. This represents an 82% increase in population since approval of the general plan, and an 83% increase in housing units since approval of the general plan. The city size has increased by 62% to 190 square miles. And the planning area has increased by 83% to 246.6 square miles. The general plan is Chapter 12 includes a near-term implementation program for years 2004 through 2008, and this is an example portion of that implementation plan. It includes the activity, the general plan objective it seeks to achieve, the purpose of the activity, the department that should take lead responsibility, the completion date for the activity, and resources and stakeholders to help complete that activity. So included in the 2008 General Plan Progress Report is an update of these activities. And with this, we included a status of either complete, continued, or there are 2 revised activities, and then information on the progress of that implementation. There were 42 near-term implementation activities in that 2003-2008 near-term implementation program. 28 of those are complete. 12 of those will be continued to the 2009-2013 near-term implementation program, which I will be reviewing with you in a short while. And 2 of the activities are being revised into 1. And these 2 activities are relating to affordable housing programs. And with some of the market changes in the last few years, we thought it was best not to pick specific housing programs at this time, but take a step back and figure out what the city needs first, and then pursue specific programs. Many of the activities that are being continued are actually currently underway, and 81% of these near-term activities are either complete or currently underway today, which is a great accomplishment for the city, especially considering all of our budget constraints. This general plan amendment cycle, there were 6 amendments, 5 map amendments, and 1 text amendment. 2 of these amendments are being carried over into 2009, but 4 of them have been approved. If the 2 that have been continued to this year are approved, these general plan amendments of this year will have increased build out by over 3,000 units and increased population build out by over 8,000 people. There have been 23 general plan amendments approved since the adoption of the general plan. 2 of these were text amendments and the rest were map amendments. With the approval of these general plan amendments, the municipal planning area has increased by 112 square miles, and I listed the 5 amendments that have increased our city size, and you can see that Sonoran Valley general plan amendment was the most significant of these, and the 203rd and Pecos is one of those pending applications, which is why it's in italics. 113,000 dwelling units have been added to our build-out, and 250,000 potential residents have been added to our build-out. So currently, as I said, our municipal planning area is 246 square miles. Our dwelling unit build-out is now 258,000 dwelling units. And our population build-out is 638,000 people. And you can see on the screen the breakdown of our population by area, and that the area south of Patterson is one of our largest areas that's going to be coming. So also interesting is that we have 22,000 built dwelling units, which represents 8.5% of our build-out. So we're just getting started with our development. And you can see that broken down by area, that north of I-10, still only 55% of the housing units have been built out. From I-10 to the Gila, it's 35%. Gila to Patterson, only 3%, and we're not barely built out in the Sonoran Valley area. And this chart kind of represents it graphically, how our population will be shifting to the south as we move forward in time, if that blue area represents Sonoran Valley, and that our largest population area, which is north of I-10, will become just a small part of our population when we get to build out. There have been 8 annexations in 2008, which added 2,300 acres to the city. Since the adoption of the general plan, there have been 26 annexations, which have added almost just over 46,000 acres of land to the city. And again, the Sonoran Valley annexation is a big majority of that land. There have been 7 planned area developments approved in 2008, which you can see listed above. The most significant, of course, have been our city center quadrant PADs. And staff has also been working on additional planning efforts. The Rural Development Ad Hoc Subcommittee met to make recommendations for our rural areas, and those were approved by council in August of 2008. The Community Parks Master Plan has come through work session to both commission and council. The Integrated Water Master Plan has been approved by council in 2008. The El Rio Watercourse Master Plan was approved, and its implementation has been underway through the year 2008. The Hassayampa Framework Study was recently approved, and I believe some of that information was included in your packet. And the Hidden Valley Framework Study is underway, and staff has been involved in that as well. As you all know by now, the city was honored with the All-America City Award and the Most Livable City Award, which we're very proud of. And also to note that the last year's General Plan Progress Report for 2003 to 2007 did receive an honorable mention from the Arizona Planning Association. And this concludes my presentation on the General Plan Progress Report, so I'm going to move on to the 2009 Near-Term Implementation Program.
Stop.
Okay,
You're
I
not
can
going to move
stop.
on. We're going to take questions or comments from the commission. Comments, anyone? I have a question, Katie. Is this our first or second official report as a result of our general plan?
This is our second official report.
Okay.
The first one was brought to you in April of 2008, and we covered years 2003 to 2007 since we hadn't been doing it annually. So I guess this is our first annual report, but it's the second progress report.
That's what I was thinking. Okay. I have a question for senior staff again. Is 2011 about the right time when we're going to appoint a new general plan committee? Long-range planning manager commits?
Mr. Chairman, we're looking at that right now. As you know, the anniversary of the plan, the 10-year anniversary will be in 2013, and so at a minimum, we would want to start looking at it at least 2 years in front of that. The other thing that is involved is the fact that we will have gone over 50,000 population officially by a decennial census in 2010. So ideally, we would actually probably want to start the planning effort toward redoing the general plan even earlier than that, so that we kind of fall in between the census, official census demarcation and the 10-year anniversary. So we're working on preparing a timetable for that as we speak.
Okay. The reason I asked that is I kind of looked at the names of the people who served on that committee, and there are several of us who are still around, but there are a lot of people who are no longer in the city. And so I guess what I'm stating early is I'd like to be on that committee again, and I'll ask Commissioner Lax if he wants to go with me again, because we have long memories.
No, I think continuation of members from the prior committee would be beneficial in this planning effort. At the same time, there's 3 times as many people in the city as there were in 2003. So I think we'll want to make sure we get as many people involved as we can to provide us with opinions and
Well said.
suggestions.
Well said, diplomatically. Okay, if there's nothing else on this, Katie, excellent job, excellent report. Long, not light bedtime reading, but well done nevertheless. Okay, moving on, I need a motion that we recommend that this report be forwarded to the City Council, please.
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to make, yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you were pointing over here.
Okay.
I
have
make
a
a mo-
motion from Commissioner Miller and a second from Commissioner Loretano. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it 7-0. Okay, Katie, now we're going to I'm going to open the public hearing for case 087000009, near-term implementation program for the 2009-2013 minor general plan amendment.
Thank you. Well, as I said earlier, the current implementation program that's part of our general plan is from 2004 to 2008. Now that we've reached the end of 2008, it was time to create a new near-term implementation program with activities that we could do from 2009 to 2013. There were several sources for the activities that are contained within this report. The first off, like I said, there are 12 activities being carried from the 2003-2008 implementation program to this one that weren't yet finished. Also, in the general plan at the end of each chapter, there were long-term implementation activities that were listed. And staff compiled these and went through them since it had been 5 years since they were compiled to make sure they were still relevant. Some of them had actually already been accomplished. And so those activities that had not yet been accomplished and were still relevant were included in this new near-term implementation program. We also requested input from departments, finding out what planning activities they had planned for the next 5 years. And I will talk about this more in a minute. But we also incorporated items from the Smart Growth Scorecard that would increase our scorecard score and added those activities as well. In the end, we ended up with 33 near-term implementation activities. 12 were a part of the original near-term implementation program, and 24 of these activities will boost the city's score on the Smart Growth Scorecard. The first report on the progress of this implementation program will be brought to the Commission and Council in 2010 with the 2009 General Plan Progress Report. And I anticipated our chairman's question because I did want to point out that there was one significant item listed in the near-term implementation program, which is updating our general plan. And since we already discussed this a little, I'll go through this quickly. But basically, we must update our plan every 10 years, and it has to be ratified by voters every 10 years. So our general plan expires on November 4th, 2013, and we have to have a new plan ratified by then. Now, normally we could just update the plan and re-ratify the plan we currently have if we think it's good and we like it, but there's a little kink this time, and that we've moved from a medium-sized community, which is under 50,000, to a large community, which has a population over 50,000, and there's several additional requirements for these large communities that we'll have to complete. And just to kind of show you what those are, this is a flow chart that the Department of Commerce has provided cities with to show you how to determine what elements you need to include. And so the last time we did the plan, we're between 2,500. We're not between 2,500 and 10,000, so we said no. But we were below 50,000, so these were the required elements at that time. However, now we're over 50,000, which means we have the elements that were required of a medium community. Plus, we did do several of the elements that were required of a large community that we did. And then there's 8 additional elements, which you can see here, that are required of a large community that we don't currently have complete. There's also other elements, such as an economic development element, which is mentioned in the scorecard, which we might consider including in the general plan, but isn't required of a large community. So you can kind of see on both sides there that our general plan might double in content, not necessarily in size, but there's a significant amount of work that needs to be put into the general plan before we move forward. And we are thinking about getting it ready now. Even though it doesn't expire to 2013, we don't want to wait till the last minute. And it typically takes 2 to 3 years to complete a plan by ratification, which you can see here. We have to start research and generating maps. We have to create and adopt a public participation program. Our last general plan took 16 months just for the actual creation of the document itself. And the approval process takes 8 to 9 months because there's a 60-day review period. There's a 120-day waiting period from when council approves it to when it can be ratified. So it just eats away at a lot of time. So staff is looking right now at getting ready to gear up for a general plan update. So that concludes my presentation on the 2009 implementation program. So I can take any questions you have on that.
Okay. Questions of staff? Commissioner Williams? No.
Well, I just have one comment, and maybe it's too early. It's on the Smart Growth Scorecard. Is that
Too early.
Yeah.
Anything else? Katie, another good job. I mean, this is not light reading. Trust me. Especially in the afternoon when it's nap time. So I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion to approve the the recommendation to send the near-term implementation program for the 2009-2013 minor general plan amendment to City Council, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recommend that we approve the case 08700-00009, the minor amendment to the text of the general plan to formally establish a new near-term implementation program for the years 2009 through 2013.
I have a motion from Commissioner Lax and a second from Commissioner Schlosser. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it, 7-0. Okay, now I'm going to open the public hearing for the presentation of the 2009 Arizona Smart Growth Scorecard for Goodyear.
Okay, thank you. Our current general plan follows the principles of the guiding Growing Smarter Plus legislation that was approved by the state legislature. So first, I want to talk a minute about what smart growth is, because we banter this term a lot. But basically, it's a mix of land uses, being able to walk, rely less on a car to get around, having diversity in housing and business options, density, preserving open space, and having transportation options besides car. And those are all things that are part of smart growth. And to give you an example of this, this comes out of the Department of Commerce's presentation on smart growth. But this is a typical suburban street in the valley. And so the first thing you can do is add transportation options, widen the sidewalks. You can add street trees, add dense building right up onto the street, and then further infill the area. And you can see that that suburban street became a very exciting, dynamic place to live because of smart growth. And so the tools to make this kind of thing happen include form-based codes, traditional neighborhood design, which some of that is evident in what you saw and what's going in at the city center, transfer development of rights so that we can protect some areas and move those densities to other areas, transit-oriented design, water conservation, and natural resource planning. So these are the kind of things that the state is looking for. And basically what happened is Governor Napolitano directed state agencies to give discretionary funding to those cities that are engaged in smart growth. So they had to come up with a way to determine how cities are engaged in smart growth, which is how they came up with the Smart Growth Scorecard. It's an incentive-based tool. To be able to get state funding, they're basically just going to check, yes, you've filled out the card, or no, you haven't filled out the card. But if you are a smart growth community, there will be additional incentives such as percentage points off loans and additional discretionary funding from certain agencies. There's 6 guiding principles of growing smart identified by the state, and these guiding principles make up the structure of the scorecard. And you can see number 1 is responsibility and accountability, and that is section 1 of the Smart Growth Scorecard. And so those are the areas that they're looking at. There are 3 types of communities, and as I said before, we've moved into the large community category because we have a population of 50,000 or more. And you can see here that there's 150 questions, and since we're a large community, we have to answer all 150 questions. And we would need a score of at least 120 to reach that smart growth category. And luckily, Goodyear scored 122. So we are in the smart growth category. But as I said before, we're always going to look to improve our score. So we have identified those areas where we can do more smart growth and added those to our implementation program so we can further the principles of smart growth. This concludes my presentation on the Smart Growth Scorecards. I'd be happy to take any questions you have on that.
Commissioner Williams.
Thank you. Again, good job, Katie. I just have one comment, and it's on item 23, one of my favorite things.
What?
It's on item 23, or question 23. Does your community require and/or provide incentives for green building? And this is one of the questions where we only scored 1 point instead of 2 or 3. And I just would hope as we go forward that we would put some kind of priority on this point and try to do things that would make us a leader in the valley as a city that encourages green buildings.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. I couldn't agree with you more. Staff is already working on that internally on green building programs and how we can implement them. And also our new version of the general plan will have to have a energy element and conservation element. So that'll be another way we'll be able to wrap green building into the policies and goals of the city.
Thank you.
Other questions of Commissioner Loretano?
I just found it interesting, and I don't know if there's any more information. I was reading some of the transit parts, because I know we just recently really expanded bus service. Since we're moving up, is there any talk about moving any of the transit and the connectivity with some of the other transit in the valley forward, or where are we on some of that? Because it says we're all talking about it, but I know we're kind of far out here. And
Thank you. I believe that, and I can be corrected, that light rail is currently planned to be taken to 83rd, but that's not planned for 20 years?
2018.
2018. So before that moves forward, they're probably not going to be looking at it for our area. I mean, I think we're going to be looking for ways we can encourage transportation. The Public Works Department is already looking at a study for a neighborhood connector for basically within Goodyear to get people from here to there. So we are looking at different ways we can, but you're right, there are challenges since we're...
Has anyone ever talked about those railroad tracks that go straight downtown? Because we see all these development coming this area and further out. I-10 just gets, even building it, you're going to build that and it's going to clog right up. Any talk about any other, or it's just going to be the freeway is hopefully, and then the 303 at some point?
I haven't heard anything.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Loretano, MAG has done a commuter rail study. That the component of that it would be the opportunities for using existing track, but that's really was just kind of a pretty initial look at it, and there's going to obviously need to be additional study to take it any further. But I know that MAG has it on their radar. And then as Katie noted, the light rail plan initially identified extension of light rail to the park and ride at either 79th, 83rd, right around in there in 2018. And they have started some corridor study and analysis on that in anticipation of that. So that's moving in that direction, even though 2018 seems like a long time away, but
do we get, I don't want to say ding, but do we lose points because a lot of that transportation stuff, since it's regional, seems like it is out of Goodyear's control? I mean, we can only do so much to connect in.
Well, we can do things like we are doing, though, with the park and rides. And when you think about transit-oriented development, you tend to think about development that occurs next to light rail stations and things like that, but it can also be adjacent to bus stops. And so we do have some transit, and the thing about the Smart Growth Scorecard, the scoring that we've achieved to this point is a self-assessment. I don't know how hard the state is going to look at it and determine whether or not the scoring is accurate in their opinion. But if you look at some of the questions, some of the questions seem to be fairly constrained too. For example, I think it's on historic preservation, in order to get all 3 points, you had to have this, 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 and this. Well, if you didn't have one of those, then theoretically you wouldn't qualify for the 3 points and automatically fall into a 2-point category. So, there's hopefully over time they may see their way to adjust some of the scoring criteria as well, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Well, then do we get credit for when you do these scoring? Do we get credit because all the developments come in front? I know you guys are very good about putting employment centers around the development, like you were talking about in the mobile. Do we get credit for that then, trying to keep the jobs here to make the transportation easier here?
Yes, there are questions that deal with jobs to housing ratio and identification and preservation of employment corridors. And overall, I think we have done a very good job of that. Yeah. If anything, we probably, because of our situation with respect to proximity to airports, we have quite a bit of land that has been committed to employment. So I think in that respect, we probably did as well as we could do.
Thank you.
Other questions of staff? I have one, since seeing no one others. When we were looking at these scores, one of the things when Commissioner Williams talked about the green component, and we got a 1 in that, yet the city is looking at implementing a trial program about rebating or waiving fees on solar power, building permit fees on solar power. I guess that leads me to my question on items that we scored a 1. I know it's not a requirement for us to provide a near-term program that would move us to a 2 or a 3, but are there some items that you have in working through this plan that you have identified that would enable us to, get from being, a 1 point, which is we're not doing real good, to at least a 2 where we're trying in some of those things? I'll give it to Katie first, and then.
Yes, we have. We combed through the scorecard, trying to identify tasks that we could do to increase our score, especially items like that. And we tried to incorporate as many of those as we could into the 2009-2013 near-term implementation program. And during that presentation, I should have noticed, which is partially why, if you look at the final implementation program, we included a column that says Smart Growth Scorecard, and the number in that column references what item in the scorecard the activity is referencing.
I guess my question, and maybe I don't know if this is more work than it's worth, but I think one of the things that'll come up when this gets presented to council is they're going to say, okay, what are, the next 5 projects that we could do to get 5 more points out of this, or 10 more points, or is it worth, are there near-term projects that we could implement? Because when I looked at the near-term implementation program, you referenced a lot of different projects, but I couldn't figure out whether that would give me a point in this one, or it would take me from a 2 to a 3. I think the critical thing is taking us from 1s to 2s. In certain areas.
No, thank you for that comment. Yeah, we don't specifically have a kind of a hit list of things we can do this year possibly to increase our score, but that's a good idea to put together.
I think that's going to be asked.
Mr. Chairman, I have already gone through the scorecard with that express purpose. I have not developed it into an action list. I've developed a list of ones where we need to improve and have an opportunity to improve, but we haven't developed it into a formal action list yet.
My suggestion would be, when we get ready to present this to council, that we have a short action list and short and brief is the word. But I think that's a question. That's where you can show that, okay, we can, if we do certain things over the next year, when we have to rescore ourselves next year, we can be in the 130 range and pick up at least 7 to 10 points by doing things that don't cost a lot of money, but if we do them, if we get the program in, then we should get credit for it.
That's a very good suggestion, and we were already thinking along those lines, and so we'll make it a point of getting it ready before the council meeting.
I would encourage it.
I would point out, too, that the near-term implementation program matches up to what was in the general plan. It's not the only things we do.
I know that.
I'm just clarifying
No,
for the
I'm
record
not-
that's not the only things that we end up doing. These are the things that we're identifying to pursue in furtherance of the general plan, in addition to our regular work activities.
Didn't infer that at all, and I knew that.
And I didn't take it that way. I was just kind of clarifying that.
Okay. Any other Commissioner Williams wants to make a comment.
Yeah, I do have a comment, and I think now that we are over the 120-point threshold that gets us in the top level, is that right? Mm-hmm. That our attitude, instead of being concerned about the score, is to identify the ones and the twos, and then instead of picking the easy ones to get from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, to take the ones that are really important and really make a difference in real life, and work on the ones that would really get the city recognized as a leader in some important areas, such as green buildings, as we go forward. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, let's do the right thing because it's right, and let's not, and the score will follow. Let's not do things just because it'll increase our score from 132 to 134. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Thank you.
I certainly understand the comment. It's not just about the scores, it's about what the scores are intended to accomplish. And so I understand that point. Thank you.
Thank you.
I support Commissioner Williams' point. Commissioner Lax?
I just want to know when you guys are giving Katie a vacation, since she's obviously put in a yeoman's job in all of these reports, and it's a job well done.
It is a very good job, Katie. Excellent night at the podium. And on that note, I'm going to ask for a motion to recommend the presentation of the 2009 Arizona Smart Growth Scorecard for the City of Goodyear to the City Council, with the recommendation that it be submitted to the Arizona Department of Commerce.
Mr. Chairman, I make a recommendation that we recommend to City Council that we accept the 2009 Arizona Smart Growth Scorecard for Goodyear. Any more should I add?
Oh, and that it be submitted to the Arizona Department of Commerce.
Well, I'm sure they do that.
I have a motion from Commissioner
Second.
Miller and a second from Commissioner Lax. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, 7-0. Joe? Nothing. Okay. Staff communications. I'd like to recognize the Senior Director of the Community Development Department of Goodyear, Harvey Kraus, please. To the podium, sir.
Senior staff.
Senor Kraus.
Fallen and I can't get up. Get him a clapper.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. We have a special presentation this evening. We have one of our members that is had a long tenure on the Planning Commission and service to the community, and we want to recognize and celebrate that service, Mr. Carol DeBroker. And we have a certificate of appreciation for him. Just a little bit of background. I met Carol, if I can use your first name, prior to his appointment to the Planning Commission. I think I met him through Rotary, through, I think, White Tanks Rotary, and that's where I first had my initial contact with Mr. DeBroker. And for those that are not familiar with Rotary, Rotary is an international service organization, and one of the tenets of Rotary is community service. And Carol has put in a lot of community service in Goodyear throughout his tenure on the Planning Commission and even prior to that. So this is just scratching the surface on his commitment to the community. So his appointment to the Planning Commission was in March of 1998. So he served over 10 years on the Planning Commission, which is pretty long tenure. And we really want to celebrate and recognize those 10 years of service. I know Carol is a man of few words. He doesn't make a lot of comments. He doesn't ask a lot of questions, but when he does, I know they're important and they're worthy and they're quality. So we do want to celebrate your service, and I want to present you this certificate of appreciation to Carol DeBroker in recognition of your years of service and dedication to the Planning and Zoning Commission, March 1998 through January of 2009. It's signed by Mayor Kavanaugh. So I'll present that. We also have a cake that has this same certificate on it, and it's suitable for eating. So I'll just do that right now.
Man, a few words. Say a few words. Thank you very much. I have really enjoyed the service with the city, and I will continue to serve the city in any way I can and bring whatever expertise I might have to be available for consultation. And I really appreciate all of your efforts and sincerely hope everything goes well, and it will. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any commissioner like to make a comment on serving with Mr. Vice Chair DeBroker?
Well, Carol, I'll miss you. You have been my road buddy on this side, and you have always been such a gentleman. And when I came on, you certainly made me feel very warm and very cared for. So because it's awesome coming on to something like this, and you made me feel right at home, and I enjoyed you as when you also served as the chair.
Are we just going to go?
Yes, your turn.
I'll just echo the same thing. Thank you so much, and I'm sure you want to volunteer for that general plan committee. Don't you? We're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Luke?
I was going to say exactly the same thing. I've only known you for a year or so, but you're quite a gentleman. And I appreciate it, and I enjoyed when you were chairing as well. Not that I don't enjoy your chairmanship. Yeah, I voted for you.
Commissioner Williams?
Now, again, Carol, it's just been a pleasure to have made your acquaintance, and I thank you for your sage advice and for your leadership by example.
Commissioner Lax?
Carol, I also appreciate, being able to serve with you. You've certainly been somewhat of a mentor on the commission for me, a little bit of a polar opposite of one of my other mentors, who will avoid eye contact with at the moment. But certainly, the issues that you bring up are really important and have shown me a little bit different way of viewing some things, and I really appreciate that.
The chairman has had the opportunity to sit on both sides of Commissioner DeBroker. When I first got on the commission, I sat on that side of Commissioner DeBroker, and he gave me sage advice and kept me in check every once in a while when I would truly get out of control, or the chairman let me go, and he would give me a little elbow and say, and he would look at me and say, and then I would get it back under control. And then when I finally moved over here to sit in the chairman's spot, he has been a wise man that I have appreciated, because every once in a while I have to lean over and say, well, what do you think about this, quietly, and he gives me a piece of advice, and then we move on. So my appreciation is from both as a junior member of the commission and now as a leader of the commission, and I want to say thank you very much for your service and for your wise advice. So thank you. Without further ado, I'm going to take a motion to adjourn and go for cake. Is there any other was there any other communications? Okay. Good.